Welcome to 420 TV, and as you can see, I have returning guest Jordan Maxwell from the jordanmaxwellshow.com, and I'm happy to have you back on here. And I thought we'd get into some really cool ideas about Zecharia Sitchin one, and over the years, people try to open up doorways or gateways into other realms. So, welcome to the show, Mr. Maxwell, and happy to have you on again.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and delighted to be on with you. And Zecharia was a business partner of mine. I was in business with him. So I've learned a lot of things about Zecharia I would never have been privy to because I was a business partner. I traveled with him. So what is it you wanted to know, or is there anything in particular you wanted to know?
Well, it's kind of a hearsay thing to an extent. I was watching Leo Zagame on his show, and he was talking about how it was rumored that Mr. Sitchin had kind of unprecedented access to the Vatican vaults in a way that most people don't get to do, and more that he also was able to take in and out artifacts, maybe ancient world or even possibly alien. And he went on to start talking about even possibly that Mr. Sitchin actually had contact with said Anunnakis. And, you know, in their opinion, that was a Luciferian connection. I don't know if that's exactly the truth about, you know, like if you did meet an Anunnaki, because it seems like the Anunnaki story came around a long time before we created Lucifer. So I thought I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that, since you actually knew the man. And like you said, you were a business partner with him. So if anybody was to tell us some stuff about Zecharia Sitchin, I think it would be you.
Well, I think so too, because I did know, I did have many times I had private conversations with him and traveling with him. And I got him to speak at different conferences, and we would travel to there and back together, and we would have a lot of time to talk and talk about everything. And he told me many interesting things. Some of the stuff I can't say anything about. I wouldn't say anything about. But I got him to speak up in Portland, Oregon, back in 1997, in Portland, Oregon. And I got him to speak at a conference up there. It was a very, very important conference, and I got him to speak up there. And so we were there together. And on the last night of the conference, there was a big dinner at the hotel, a banquet at the hotel. And after the banquet was over, everybody was up roaming around talking with everybody, except Zecharia and I was sitting at the front table by ourselves. We didn't feel like getting up and roaming around, so we sat there talking together. And I asked him, I said, Zecharia, I've spent a lot of money on you. I have a question to ask you. I'd like for you to give me a correct answer. Give me a truthful answer. I said, where are you getting all of your information? When every time I turn around, you got a new book coming out. Where are you getting all this information from? And he said, it's automated writing.
So I kind of like a download, as a lot of people talk about, they download information and it just comes out.
Yeah. And I know what that's like because I've had it happen to me. It happened to me when you are sitting idly by thinking you want to write something. You start to write, all of a sudden the thoughts come to you, write it down, and the next thought comes to you, and you write that down, and it just keeps coming. Something is feeding the thoughts, and I'm just writing it down as I'm hearing it. And as I'm sensing this experience I'm writing it. And it's showing me exactly what to write, how to write it, and what to say, and how to say it, etc. So I know what that's like being used in automated writing. It doesn't mean it's evil and of the devil, because according to the Bible, that's the way the Bible was written.
That's right. All the
Spirit
prophets.
of God moved upon writers, Bible writers, and they wrote what they were seeing and were hearing and what they were being led to write. So don't say that Jordan Maxwell said that he was involved with devils and demons and all that kind of crap that I hear from people talking about me. And if I say that somebody is downloading information and being inspired to write a certain thing, that doesn't mean they're writing from the devil. It doesn't mean they're doing something evil with the devil. No, it just means that the same thing that God did with the Apostle Paul, he's still doing today.
That's right. If you decided that any kind of download like that was in a negative way, you'd have to discount most of the Judeo-Christian religion. Yeah,
that's right.
Or even Islam as well.
Or even Islam or Judaism and all of it, because it's all said to have been inspired of God. What do you mean inspired? Inspire means to take in breathing from another world.
Yeah.
So that's why you have something called conspire. To conspire means to breathe together. When you get a bunch of guys together and they're all huddled in a huddle, they're breathing together. And so the word is inspire is to breathe. So to conspire means to breathe together. So that's what a conspiracy is. All the guys get together and they're talking about what they're going to do. And so it's called a conspiracy, conspire.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's what Zecharia said, that he was being led to write what all the books he was writing.
And on top of that, he also was in his own right a very good one of only 12 people that could read and
who were licensed
cuneiform.
Yeah. And so I asked him, I said, do you know who is using you? Is that what you're saying? Somebody else is using you? And he said, well, yeah, that's basically what downloading means. It means channeling, means that somebody is channeling information through your mind and out your mouth so that you're talking and people think it's you that knew. No, it's you're being channeled. You're channeling information. And so I said, well, then do you know who's using you? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, is it the same Anunnaki you talk about in your writings? He said, of course, that's exactly who it is.
And are we talking Inky?
I don't know. But
or the other guy.
Or the other guy. And so I said to him, I said, obviously, if you've got a one-on-one, do you have a one-on-one relationship with Anunnaki? He said, yes, I do. And I said, well, if you have a one-on-one relationship with them and they talk to you, they have obviously told you things that you haven't told the rest of the world. And he said, they've told me many things I cannot tell anyone. So I said to him, I said, Zecharia, I've spent a lot of money on you. I'm reminding you again. Tell me something you can't tell anybody else. Tell me something. Give me something. I've given you. Give me something. And he said, well, I'll tell you what they told me about you. I said, they told you about me? He said, yeah, we've talked about you. I said, you have talked with the Anunnaki about me? Yes. He said, basically, they talked to me about you. I didn't have to talk to them about you. They talked to me. And I said, what did they say about me?
Yeah, right.
And he said, they said that they like you, that they trust you, and they know what you're doing, and they're doing it to help educate your fellow man. And so they trust you and they like you because of that, and that they trust you. And I said, well, that's nice. I appreciate that. At the time, I thought to myself, but I didn't say anything out of respect to him. I was going to say, or I wanted to say, well, that's nice that your spirit guides like me and they appreciate what I've done. because I think that's nice that they would feel that way about me. Since I've already spent over $100,000 on you, it's about time they like me. Yeah, sure, I appreciate that. And so, anyway, that was interesting to find out that he actually had one-on-one relationship with the Anunnaki, or with the ones that we call the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
And that and it would not surprise me at all if he had any kind of a back entrance to the Vatican, because I did myself. I also had the same kind of experience. When I went to Italy, I went to visit the Vatican. And when you go there, like I did, cold, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to do anything. So on the street in front of the Vatican is a bunch of little Mickey Mouse little offices, and each one is an office for a tour guide. So the place is covered with tour guides. And so when you come walking down the middle of the street, walking into the Vatican, there are people standing there with papers and signs saying a tour guide. If you need a tour guide, come talk to me. And there was a young man, young German boy, I'd say maybe 24, 25 years old. He was standing there with the sign. So I approached him. I said, yeah, I'd like to take a tour of the Vatican. And so I talked with him about who I am and what I'm doing a little bit. And then we got in his car and he drove around to the back of the Vatican and went in the back way and went in the very back way of the Vatican and knocked on the door. And the guys came to the door, security came to the door, and he spoke with them in Italian. And he told them that I was a very important man from America that wanted a special tour of the Vatican. I didn't know what he was. I didn't know what he was saying.
Right.
And
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. And so then he told them that I am a very important man, so that they need to take care of me, so it will look good for the Vatican. And so they went and got a wheelchair for me, which helped a lot.
Yeah,
I sat in a wheelchair, and they had one of the security guys come and wheel me through the Vatican. And we went all through the back, all the big storage rooms where they have all the paintings and the statues and everything that they are cleaning up before they put them on display.
Yeah.
And so I got a special tour of the Vatican in a wheelchair. And they would, and the security people would talk to each other about me, and they were all very courteous to me. Very kind, very courteous. I didn't get a chance to go in the Vatican Library, but it's probably just as well, because I wouldn't know what the hell I was looking at anyway.
Yeah, right.
Thousands and thousands of reference books and all kinds of stuff. And I wouldn't know what to look for to start with.
Yeah, it's rumored they have everything from almost any old culture.
Almost anywhere. Yeah, because it's the Roman Empire's collection. The Vatican is representing on the earth the Roman Empire. The Caesars of the Roman Empire are embodied in the Pope. He's the Holy Father. He's the Holy Father who talks to God. He's a Godfather.
Right, the Godfather.
Yeah. So I had a very nice visit with the Vatican. They wheeled me into the dining room. I had lunch there. I met with some of the officials. We sat and talked. It was very, very nice occasion. And it was very nice. I went into the Sistine Chapel. They rolled me all around in a wheelchair, all over the Vatican. And so it would not surprise me if Zecharia Sitchin got special treatment at the Vatican, because he was well known around the world. And whatever happens to him, it would be reported around the world. So I can appreciate the Vatican would give him a license to see things and go places in the Vatican that others can't. And
it would make a lot of sense, because he has, arguably a pretty unique way of thinking about the tablets that he decoded, and it's more of a coherent story than like say if you go over to Oxford or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
still arguing about words, what it means, the context, and there's I don't know how many number of people nowadays that claim to be experts on the story, and all
Yeah.
they're doing is going to a website and reading it and trying to translate it for themselves. So when you take into account that Mr. Sitchin actually had access to real documents and references that also, go back to those cuneiform tablets, and we know that there was something really important on those tablets.
Oh,
Otherwise,
very
the
much
U.S.
so.
wouldn't have bum rushed there in 2003 to the History of Natural Museum, excuse me, the Museum of Natural History in Baghdad there, where they were supposedly had like 250,000 new um, cuneiform tablets that just disappeared there.
Yeah, I know. You're right. There was about 25 years, I would say, estimate about 25 years before Zecharia Sitchin became famous. There was a lady named Lana Cantrell. Lana Cantrell. I think it's Cantrel, one L. Lana Cantrell. You go on the web to Amazon and look up the authoress Lana Cantrell. She wrote a book called the Greatest Story Never Told. The Greatest Story Never Told by Lana Cantrell. In that book, about 30 years, 25 to 30 years before Zecharia Sitchin, she had a large book called The Greatest Story Never Told. You can still buy it through Amazon.com. It was all the same story about the Anunnaki, the planet Nibiru, the entire story.
Yeah.
That Zecharia had been talking about was already rewritten by Lana Cantrell a long time before, many years before Zecharia, that book came out. I knew Lana Cantrell. I called her and talked with her. She was so very, very kind to me. And she sent me one of her books with a nice letter at the front in the book. It was in the front of the book to me. And I talked with her about her work. I often wanted to bring up, and once I did bring up, Lana Cantrell to Zecharia Sitchin. And he let me know that he was only interested in answering questions concerning his own work. He was not interested to comment on other people's work. And I understood that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, here's what I am not saying. I'm not saying that Zecharia Sitchin borrowed Lana Cantrell's work. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying here were two obviously brilliant individuals interested in the same subject and reading and understanding the ancient texts as Lana Cantrell obviously could and did. She was just relating what Zecharia Sitchin saw and what he related. Same
Yeah. So
thing.
there's two different people that came
Same
close to the
paper.
same
They're
conclusion.
seeing the same documents, and so they're reporting what they saw on the same document, which means that they both were very, very intelligent people. I had the highest respect for Lana Cantrell and Zecharia Sitchin. So, but the most important thing, as far as I was concerned, is the fact that he told me that he was actually in contact with the Anunnaki. And I asked him, I said, did they tell you when they're going to come back and what they're going to do? And he said, yes, I know exactly when they're coming back and I know precisely what they're going to do. And I said, can you tell me? He said, no, I cannot tell you.
Right.
So
Well,
I said,
I wouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, because I've followed Zecharia Sitchin's work, and he wasn't. A lot of people were freaking out in 2012 because the Mayan
yeah,
calendar ended, and he was like,
yeah.
that's
Well, that's what he told me. He said, if I were you, I wouldn't worry about it because you will not see it.
yeah.
You will not see it in your lifetime. It won't be that soon. You're not going to see it in your lifetime, so don't worry about it.
I
But
think that's an interesting way you put it. The words that you used, like a spirit guide, for his connection there, and
yeah,
and that kind of brings me to another topic, is these over and over again, we keep hearing about people that also are having whatever they want to call a spirit guide, like from Nebuchadnezzar a long time ago, was getting information to try to build some sort of gateway or doorway. And then you have Crowley supposedly went to Egypt, and he had his own encounter, him and his wife.
Yep.
And then that kind of brings us to the atomic bomb, which was supposedly there was a sigil done there to mark an opening of a gateway. But if we fast forward till now, and you think back about a lot of stuff that Zecharia Sitchin said, where he talked about maybe the Greys were more like, little automatons that the Anunnaki were sending here, more like AI, exactly in the same way that we're now trying to send robots everywhere. And we're allowing AI to not only write stories, even President Trump's, most of his speeches are written by AI. And we got AI writing the news now. And then you realize that Google and some of these other super tech companies are using algorithms in conjunction with these, what they call quantum supremacy computers, which are going down to the subatomic level. And like they said, they're counting ones, zeros, but now it's beyond that, where they're counting ones and zeros and 1 and 0 at the same time, giving it an exponential rate of predictability. And they're using those learning machines against the public, basically keeping track of everything we do, say, or think about. Because if you've been paying attention to news articles, they do have machines now that can literally put a teletype out of what you're thinking and show a picture of what you're dreaming. So we're at that point where whoever controls the top of the pyramid has got a matrix on the entire world in a way that they've never had it before. But it is reminiscent of, like I said, way back in Bible stories, of them trying to get ancient knowledge from their ancient world and to open up gateways and to talk to some of these people or entities, or I mean, however you want to describe them. I think myself that there's a biological race, like Sitchin described the Anunnaki, that are running some of these
There's
programs.
no doubt in my mind about that. I think you're exactly correct that there is something that the U.S. government calls EBs, EBE, extraterrestrial biological entities.
Yeah.
They're extraterrestrial, but they're biological, and they're actually creatures, but they are here, and they're not from here. They're not from here. They found you, and they came here. You're still looking out there to see if there may be something out there. They're not looking out there to see if there's anything, and they found us a long time ago. They were already here and knew us a long, long time ago. And they've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, there's no doubt in my mind about it, that we as humans are being directed, and our destiny is being directed by extraterrestrial knowledge, biological beings from another place in our great universe.
And
They
you
may
think
be
that's
within our galaxy.
I was going to say, do you think that's pretty much the reason why there's so many of these biological programs going on right now, from GMO to vaccines?
No doubt about it. Yeah.
And I heard you one time talk about we're more of a, human beings are more going through a stage of devolution instead of evolution. Like,
no, you're right. You're right. And also this GMO foods is connected to the GMO of humans. We're being geologically transformed as humans. We're not only messing with our food supply with GMO, but we ourselves are being messed with on a biological level, to biologically change us into something that's called the new man. And so we are being biologically transformed. And we have Hollywood producers like Spielberg, who produced movies called Transformers, showing some kind of a giant creature transforming himself into a tank and then back into a sports car and then back into some kind of a spiritual being. And the movies are called Transformers. He's telling you something.
Right? They're more
That
than meets
we
the eye.
the human family on the earth are being transformed from what we used to be many hundreds of years ago, what we used to be, as to what we're going to be 1,000 years from today. We're being transformed with GMO foods. We're being genetically transformed as to how we think and how we live and how our body operates. And we are being transformed ourselves by the people who, like Spielberg, make movies called Transformers, but they're telling you something, and we're too ignorant and ill-informed to understand what Hollywood is telling you, what they're doing. That we on the earth are being transformed into creatures that are not even going to be anything like human beings 1,000 years from today. 900 years from today, we're not going to be the same kind of human beings we are today, communicating like we're doing today.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that this thing we call artificial intelligence, and I always say, when I hear people telling me about artificial intelligence, and I have people bragging, people will brag about how we humans have developed computers that can think for themselves. And
Yeah.
I say, thank God, at least we got somebody who can think for themselves on the earth. Even if it's a computer, at least we got somebody who's got some intelligence, even though it's artificial. But thank God, at least we got some little modicum of intelligence left on the earth, because the human family don't seem to have any intelligence. We're just the same old animalistic diatribe, silly nonsense, believing the same things we believed 10,000 years ago. So that
Yeah.
the more we change, the more we stay the same. We're still believing in the same old ancient Egyptian gods that the Egyptians believed in. We still worship the same way that the ancient people worship. We still have human sacrifices.
Yeah.
We still have all the same religious belief systems that they had 10,000 years ago. We still believe them today.
Yeah. And what's weird about that is, speaking of that, I've even heard the Pope talk about it, actually. Or not Pope, Pope. I
Yep,
always,
the
about,
Holy Father.
they have this new AI church, right? And
Yep.
they're talking about, even him has referred to that they want to kind of combine all of the world's religions into this AI
New
church.
religion between Catholicism, Christianity, and Islam. And it's called, what was it? Chrislam. I think
Chrislam, yeah.
I think
I think
that's what it
so,
was.
yeah.
Chrislam. Combining Christianity with Islam. The Pope, the Jesuit Pope, who the Jesuits have been working toward this, bringing all the religions in the world under the World Revolutionary Movement. The Jesuits have been famous for behind the scenes manipulating governments and politicians to prepare them to join a new world order, of which Adolf Hitler kept talking about. Coming new world order. We know the Jesuits were heavily involved with Nazism in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
And so we know that the Jesuits were heavily involved in Zionism in Israel today. We know that they were the brains behind the political aspects of the Vatican, is being run by Jesuits behind the scenes right now today. Well, not only that, but the Pope himself is a Jesuit.
And
Period.
if I understand it correctly, the Vatican had a stance that there could never be a Jesuit pope, but yet here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. You never
And
know what tomorrow's going to bring.
I also wanted to give a little credence to what you were talking about Steven Spielberg, and how they try to tell you real things through movies. The movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yep,
Um,
of course.
they had this old book, I think in the early 70s, probably about, I think, 5 or 6 years before they completed that movie. But supposedly Nixon had hired this author to make a book and a documentary, and that book and documentary was made. But they were supposed to tell them, or at the end of it, they were supposed to hand over some video of when Eisenhower, I think it was, I may be mistaken on the president, literally met with EBEs out here at Holloman Air Force Base, right where I live. And the whole story is basically Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They
That's
just
right.
switched the place and the name. And
Yep.
you can still read that book. It's called UFOs Past, Present, and Future. And there's even an old documentary. It had Rod Serling and
Yep,
several
you're
big
right.
people in it. And then they just cut him off at the end and said the permission was rescinded.
Yep, you're right. And also, there has been so many television shows and movies made that Spielberg has been involved in that are telling you some very, very important stuff. And I had someone that I used to know very well that worked in Hollywood, and he worked on movies with Spielberg. And he was telling me about one of his experiences he had with working with Spielberg that I thought was very interesting and very telling. He said that he was working with Spielberg on a video on a movie in Orange County, California, which is the next big county south of Los Angeles County, going towards San Diego. And it's a very wide open country. It's not like Los Angeles, all built up. And he said that Spielberg was shooting a movie there, and he was working on it with Spielberg. And he said that at lunchtime, he said that everybody working on that movie set, the set was so big, everybody that worked on the set had a scooter. They roam around in scooters. Wow. Because there was so much territory that, if you're going to get anything done, you can't just walk to the job. You got to have a scooter going from one place to the next to get there, to get the job done. And he said, and Spielberg, being the director, he had a golf cart. So he could roam around a golf cart. Everybody else working had to be on scooters. So he said, so I never got a chance to actually sit down and chat with Spielberg. He said, because I work with him, but he's got no time to sit and talk with you. Yeah. And so he said, so I was sitting there one time having lunch, sitting on my scooter, and I see Spielberg coming toward me in his golf cart. And he said, so I cranked up my scooter quickly, and as he passed, I followed him. He said, I followed him because I want to catch up with him and talk to him and say hello and at least say I talked to Spielberg. Yeah. And so he says, so I was catching up with him, and he said he heard me coming up behind his golf carts. He heard my scooter. And he said he turned around to acknowledge he heard me and knew that there was somebody behind him on a scooter. And he said, but he didn't turn around to see who it was. He just turned around and let me know that he was hearing me. And he said, when he turned around and looked straight up into the sky and shook his head saying yes. He shook his head saying yes. And he said the moment he did that, instantaneously, from out of nowhere, two guys popped up on the road that I was on. They just came into existence instantly, not hiding behind bushes or trees. There were no bushes and trees. Yeah. They just popped up on the road instantly. They were in black coats, black hats, with black sunglasses, the typical men in black. And he said they instantly popped up and put their hands out. And he said, I almost hit them. And he said, I came right up to them. And they said to me, what are you doing? Who are you? And he said, I work here with Stephen. And I just wanted to say hello to him. And they said, turn around and go back to work and leave him alone. Turn around and go back to work. Leave him alone. He doesn't need to talk to you. Yeah. And he said, so I turned my scooter around and I turned back to see them before I took off. And they, boom, disappeared. And he said, I went back, and he said, well, I'll never forget that. Spielberg looked up in the sky and shook his head one time, and all of a sudden, two guys in black popped up on stopping me. I don't know what that tells you, but it tells me all I need to know.
Right. And you know that there's an interview with Dan Aykroyd where, I mean, he
Yeah,
didn't
I
talk
know it
about
was. Yeah.
actually talking to anybody, but he did mention the fact that he looked behind him and there's no one there, and then looked like within a millisecond back, and there's this big car with these guys in it dressed in black, and then all of a sudden they were over on the other side of the street without driving anywhere, like just like you said, just appeared there out of nowhere.
It just appeared out of nowhere. I know. I saw that interview.
Yeah, that
And
thing is.
I had a nice long talk with Dan Aykroyd. I've got pictures of me with Dan at Disneyland. I went out to Disney. I was invited to a special party at Disney, and
Yeah.
Dan happened to be there. And I happened to have a chance to talk with Michael Eisner, the president of Disney, and George Lucas. I had lunch with George Lucas at Disney, and Dan Aykroyd and a bunch of other notables, which was really quite an experience. I was
Yeah.
actually had the chance to sit and chit chat with George Lucas, and so I know that Hollywood is telling you things that they're trying to get you prepared for. That's what I think they're doing. They're getting the human race prepared for something which they know is going to come and going to happen, and there's nothing you're going to do about stopping it. So since they can't stop it, at least they can get you ready for it.
Yeah, you notice they never really put. I can think of very few movies where they depict humans in space with extraterrestrials in a friendly setting. It's almost always doom and gloom every time. Like bow down. It's
Yeah, you're
calling
right.
time.
And there have been so many incredibly well done movies. Like in the late 50s, they did The Thing.
Yeah.
And then before or after it was The Day the Earth Stood Still. And it all implies that we have extraterrestrials here on the earth that look like us. And
Yeah.
that's what I am totally convinced of, that the extraterrestrials who are here, if there are extraterrestrial biological entities, some of them look exactly like us. You might be talking to one and didn't even know it. That's why the
Right.
Apostle Paul says in the New Testament scriptures, the Apostle Paul said, always be hospitable to all people you talk to, for some have entertained angels unaware. Angel is an L is God, angel is a messenger of God. So what the Apostle Paul was saying in the Bible, always be hospitable to all men you meet, because some have entertained angels unaware, meaning you never know who you're talking to. You think you're talking to some man that you met. No, it's not just some man, it's an extraterrestrial who is not from here. He's not a human, but he looks human.
And to that point, there's one of the biggest famous stories in the Bible of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep.
And how it says the Lord was among us, and there were three of them, and he
That's
left the men and he
exactly
washed
right.
their feet, and he even put his daughters outside so that the townspeople wouldn't,
Yeah, they were
violate
going
these
out to
guys.
the angels. That's right.
And then look what happened to the rest of everyone else that was wanting to sodomize them and do weird things.
That's right. That's
They got
in the
taken
Bible
out.
in Genesis 19th chapter. It starts in the 18th chapter. It's right there in the book of the Bible in Exodus 18, the 18th chapter, Genesis, Exodus. Yeah. Exodus 18 talks about Abraham and Isaac, and then Abraham was there in his tent, and it says three men come walking up to the tent, and Abraham went out and bowed down to them and said, "What is my Lord saying to his servant?" And the man that he bowed down to says, "Take your shoes off. The ground you're on is holy. Remove your shoes." Why is it holy? Because I am here. So take your shoes off. It's holy ground because I'm here. And so it says that he talked with the three men, and then they said they were on their way to take care of some business. And he said, "Well, stop and have dinner anyway. I'll stop and have lunch with me." And so the three men, it says in the Bible, in Genesis 18, the three men stopped and had lunch with Abraham. And then the two men got up after lunch and they went on to take care of the business they were here for. And that's the two angels that went into Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 19.
Yeah.
Very interesting. It says that they were very handsome men, men, not diabolical creatures from another world. No, they were very handsome men. And all three of them sat and had lunch with Abraham and his wife, Sarah.
And I always find that almost, well, not always, but almost every time in the Bible, when they describe the Lord or the messengers of the Lord, they're always physical
men
beings on earth. Like, the story of Jacob and his ladder, and the whole reason they don't eat, about the hip bone, because he had a little fight with, and I'm thinking, when I was a little kid, I was thinking this, how is he fighting an angel? I mean, I thought angels were spiritual, and, it seemed like he'd just be swinging at nothing.
You're right. That's exactly right. Unless, of course, the angel materialized and appeared to him as another man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different. Because ultimately, if you're fighting this guy, you're not just fighting this guy, you're fighting an angel who has taken on the physical form of a human so you can see him and deal with him and fight him. So there's a lot of strange things being written in the scriptures that we take for granted, we don't even think about.
And that's kind of why I was asking you about these gateways throughout time.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe some of the entities can do it at will. Like you said, they can transform from physical to non-physical, but others seem to need some kind of technology to help them get here. And it seems like there's all kinds of players around the world right now, maybe trying to fast forward what's going to happen because they're in the know, or they got shared a little bit from the elite about what's coming. And it seems like a lot of these people, they form their own religions, kind of like you got what I call Crowleyites. And then you got stuff like you were talking about the movie, and I bet you've seen that they put that Moloch statue from the old 20s movie out at the Roman Colosseum, the exact one, the one that opens up and they put the babies in it in the movie. And it seems to me like they're not only just preparing for it, but they're straight up insinuating that you need to start living in a different way now.
Well, what about the television show They Live?
Yeah. Well, that would be they were everywhere, which I've always thought myself.
Yeah, me too. I mean, here the guy puts on his sunglasses, puts on these particular kind of glasses, he can see the extraterrestrials as opposed to the normal humans, but you can't see it without the glasses.
But too bad Rodney Piper didn't know that they put aspartame in the gum.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so kind of on that topic, how many people do you think, like, when we're watching these television programs like the impeachment hearings or the Russia Gate or whatever it is, and then at the same time behind the scenes you got the Epstein thing going on, and like today they arrested the jailers that were watching them. So there's all kinds of these underneath programs going on that the public doesn't get to see, but meanwhile they give us, and I always thought it was funny, I have nothing against Trump or anything, but I thought it was funny that he came out of fake entertainment like wrestling, like the WWE, and now on television it seems exactly like I'm watching wrestling, but now it's politics and the news media, and they don't even try to give you news anymore. It's all about this weird fake reality.
You're right.
Back and forth. And if you've ever watched the old wrestling, in a couple of years they'll switch the good guy and the bad guy. And so I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on that. So that, like, everybody hates Trump now. Here in a couple months, will they all be, it'll all be positive all of a sudden.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. This whole thing is like a show. And this is why during war they have areas on the earth that's at war. They call them theaters of war.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the Pacific Theater, the Atlantic Theater, the European Theater. Theater is simply a show. It's an entertainment, a theater.
And we kind of know that that's the truth. I mean, the president at the time knew that the Japanese were going to bomb Pearl Harbor,
Of
and
course,
he didn't
of
say nothing
course.
about it because they wanted to watch the show.
That's right. And they actually dropped the atomic bomb after the Japanese had publicly surrendered. When the Japanese officials come to America and surrendered the way what the U.S. government wanted them to do, they actually came here and did it, and they surrendered. And then Truman decided to drop the atomic bomb on Japan anyway, even if they did surrender, drop it on them anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
and there was no reason to do that other than to see what happened to people because we had already blown up several over here in the desert. So we
yeah,
already knew what the device could do. We just didn't get to see it in a show on top of people and have a sacrifice.
that's right. I think that's exactly what happened is that the US wanted Russia, China, and the rest of the world to see what kind of a weapon we got. So you better start thinking about if you want to start a war with the US, you might want to start thinking about what the US may have in their arsenal that we didn't tell you. But watch what we're going to do to Japan. And just keep in mind that that's very well possibly what could happen to your country if you mess with us. So show them what we could do to Nagasaki and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let Russia see that and
Yeah.
think about that. And you keep that in mind when you're thinking about messing with us.
I think that same thing's going on right now in the Middle East. There's Russian, US, and the Chinese that have all sold a bunch of these autonomous killer robots, helicopters, land based ones. And I know for a fact, I've been trying to tell people on my channel that what you think, every time you see an article where they say, hey, next year we're going to do this, it's 50 years old. They're showing you the old crap. Like even Boston Dynamics, they've been incrementally showing you these robots that get faster and faster within 6 months in an incremental way. So right now, they're already selling bots out there that can move like men, can shoot targets even when they're falling down and rolling around on the ground. So and then the technological part that they don't see as far as spying and how much, like for right now, like I know most people don't believe it and they still can't believe it, but everything in your house is spying on you. Your smart refrigerator, your camera, and your computer's keeping track of every keystroke. And like just being able to do this show, I got 3 cameras and 4 mics, and not to count my phone and the smart meter outside. And then they're setting up all these 5G networks. So there's not even a square inch on the earth that you're
that
not
they're
part
not
of the show.
that they're not watching continually and recording it.
And so, like
Absolutely.
you know how you were talking about how a long time ago, you got George Lucas or sorry, was it Steven Spielberg just looking up, saying something? You can literally do that now, and there's a human watching you. I
I
mean,
would be
maybe
a bit
not me
surprised.
particularly.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not me particularly because I'm not that important, but anybody that is important could just look up and say something, and there's people watching right now.
Yeah, because we do know that we have that kind of technology. You've seen it in movies where
Yeah,
they show the Earth and then boom, it goes down the next 10 points, goes down to the next 10 points, keeps going down and keeps going down until finally it hits the street where you're living at and moves down on you, and they can see the letter in your hand. You think,
yeah.
where did that kind of technology come from? It's not a camera as such. It's some kind of a technology that is able to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and zoom
Yeah.
right down to your shirt and see what you're reading.
And it's really crazy about that because I've seen articles at least 10 years ago where they demonstrated that they could zoom in on a newspaper in someone's hand, but at the same time, they can't give me a picture of the Earth. It's always a computer rendering or
Yeah, you're
an
right.
artist's
Yeah,
depiction of it, or it's a computer model of the Earth, but it's never an actual photograph or even a satellite zooming in on the moon instead of the Earth. So obviously they've been able to show us things, but they refuse to do it.
yep. And for some reason, our science, I have said science should be the way I've said it before is that religion should be a science. Well,
Well,
in
science
point
is
of
definitely
fact,
a religion. So
religion should be a science. But in point of fact, science is a religion
yeah,
today. Science is a religious belief, while religion should be scientifically provable. We should be looking at things that have happened spiritually speaking, scientifically, to explain how come strange things happen spiritually on the earth, and we have no answer for it. We have no discussion for all the strange things that have happened on the earth. People have seen with their own eyes, people have experienced, whole groups of people have experienced being abducted, etc., and UFOs, aliens landing and getting out walking among the people. We know those things have happened, but nobody in science wants to touch it. Nobody wants to even look at it. Why? Simple. Because unless the scientist has discovered it for a university, unless his work is represented by a particular university and he found something and published it, and the university gets credit for it, and he gets credit for it, and the government gets credit for it, unless the university gets credit for it, they don't want to just discuss it. They don't want to look at it, and they won't touch it. Forget it. Because if you do bring it out, they don't get any credit for it because they didn't find nothing. The
yeah,
university didn't find it. It was a scientist who found it. And he's not getting any credit. He'll probably get fired because he shut his mouth off.
yeah.
And
And you could
so,
just look at other things for an example of that. The history of man. Anytime you come up with any kind of new theory or evidence that goes against their view of it, or about Egypt, or even global warming, even though the ice packs are getting bigger every year and we're having all of these, we're in
yep,
a grand solar minimum and things are most likely to get colder, they're still hanging on to the idea that you should prepare for a burning world, and you need to pay them carbon tax and all of this other nonsense that's not even scientific.
that's why I said science has become a religion. There's
Yeah.
only a handful, on one hand, I can count people who are referred to as astrophysicists or scientists or physicists that I consider to be legitimately important scientists who are open minded, intellectually astute, and are looking at stuff that we'd never even heard of before. And they are now seeing things and explaining things scientifically that most people in the world never heard of, because the scientific community is a religious church. It's a religion that you can belong to and go to the church, and you have your holy rollers, you have your holy teachers, your holy prophets, and they are the great prophets, and you have to follow whatever they say science is, then that's what you have to believe to be a scientist.
And I'm sure personally that, or all throughout history, it's sometimes dangerous to go against the current religion.
You can bet on it. I think Giordano Bruno was a classic example, a little quiet little priest who believed that the earth was circulating around the sun, and that the sun represented spirituality and enlightenment. And that's why the Christianity called Jesus God's son, the
Yeah.
light of the world. Of course, the sun is the light of the world.
Yeah.
So
Did they lock him up for the rest of his life? We didn't
yeah,
get to
and
go
so
there.
then they put him in prison. He died in prison. Giordano Bruno, I think Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake. That's
Oh,
I think he was burned at the stake by Rome. Rome said, "We've had enough of this BS." Him out there waking people up and educating them scientifically. The hell with science. So they burned him at the stake and made him wish he'd never been born. That
so what do
way,
you
he
think?
kept his
What do you
mouth
think
shut.
this movement is now, where they're trying to get people to go the opposite way? Like, you wouldn't think after all of that happened in the past that you would have such a big group of flat earthers in today's world trying to prove that the earth is flat instead of
I
proving
know.
it's round.
As far as I'm concerned, the court's out on that. The jury's out on that. I don't know. All I know is that when I see the moon at night, when there's a big curvature on the moon, I understand the sun is behind us. It's going to come up tomorrow morning. It's going to
Yeah.
arrive, but the sun is behind us and it's casting a very bright light onto the moon. but we are, the round earth is in front of between the sun and the moon. That's why you see on the moon the curvature on the moon. The curvature is our planet moving in front of the light of the sun,
Yeah.
making the moon look like it's a half of a quarter of a moon or three
Yeah,
quarters of a
it's occulting the moon and all of that stuff. So what do you
yeah.
think about we're moving into 2020 now, and I'm sure you, of anybody, knows how important dates are to the elite.
Oh God,
From
yes.
9/11, the country's in an emergency, to you can go on and on and on. And I've been telling people for a couple years that I have a feeling that 2020 is the year that the occult becomes visible, because just
Why?
because of the
Because
simple fact that
that's the best you can see is 2020 with
that's
your
right.
eyes.
So I think that's why there's so many people coming out right as like there's from politicians to actors, they're coming right out saying the groups that they're in and what they believe in, really.
Yep,
And I
you're
think that
right.
we're moving into that time. So what do you think about that? Are we actually coming into a period of perfect vision, or are we going to have to wait till 2030 and say 2020 is hindsight?
Yeah, I know. It's overwhelming and obvious that we are being misled by people who are far, far wiser and more clever than we are, but
Yeah.
especially more vicious than we are. They don't care about deceiving the human family and causing wars and violence and revolutions and alcoholism and drug addiction and wars and gang wars and biker gangs. They're heavy into violence, bloodshedding, and murder. And so the people who are running this planet are murderous, and therefore they don't care the problems they're causing. And
No.
so that's what's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. And everything that I look at nowadays is from a different point of view now. Like when I looked at 9/11, maybe not right away. I knew that there was something fishy about it early on. I was one of the first people on the internet saying it was an inside job or agreeing with that. And
Yep.
then later I came to think about it whenever I watched them put up that new One World Tower, One World Trade Center, the one building, and realized it looks exactly like Hathor's Needle. And I realized that entire thing was a giant blood sacrifice, and they made everybody in the world participate in it. And it
Yep.
didn't just start
Everybody in the
there.
world. Yep.
They kept going for years. We're still in it, the war on terror.
Yep. You
Killing
got it right.
millions and millions and millions of people under this idea that we know was partially fairy tales.
That's right. And we know overwhelming when you see that story of the 757 or was it 747 supposedly hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
What a ludicrous thing to present to the world, to believe that a 757 hit the Pentagon. And yet there's no scraping on the grass is well kept, is all well groomed, right
Yeah.
up to the wall. There's no skidding of a plane hitting the Pentagon at all. And all you see is a little round hole with some fire coming out of it, a little round hole.
Yeah, and not only that, they found one motor in there, and it don't go to the plane that they said
That's
it.
right.
A bunker buster hit that, and I could tell you that for sure because my grandfather actually worked at the high-speed test track out here at Holloman, and I've got to witness a bunker buster on a rail, going 20 kilometers in 6 seconds, hit a target and go right through it.
Yep.
On top of that, I actually got to go into the Pentagon, and they have a little memorial in there, and they're even using that photograph of whenever there was only a 14-foot hole in there. And I even asked one of the colonels in there when, I wasn't supposed to, people told me, because I'm a big mouth, to keep it down when I was in there about that, but I couldn't help myself. I looked over to the guy and said, so how do you figure that big plane fit in that little hole? And I got a dirty look from him.
Yeah, right.
But it's obvious that no plane hit that.
No, obvious, and they know it too.
And I didn't realize it, but that's the same place that was attacked a long time ago by the Weather Underground.
Yeah, you're right.
And they reinforced that wall recently, right before that, and Then, if you get into the details, all the financial records for missing money and big budget projects was held there, and also in World Trade Center number 7
One
and the
number
two
seven.
towers. That's where all the records for the black budget were held, in these 4 buildings, and all of them supposedly got hit on the same day.
Yeah, they all got hit on the same day and collapsed, even with nothing hitting them.
Yeah.
Building number 7 was where all the records were kept for these expenditures of the Pentagon and all the billions and billions of dollars that nobody knows where it went, and yet that's where all the records were. And so, if you're going to investigate where all the billions and billions of dollars that were not misplaced by the Pentagon, if you're going to do any research, you had to go to Building 7. Well, Building 7 collapsed because of a fire, the fire in the kitchen. The fire broke out, and the whole entire 37-story high-rise just collapsed on itself.
Yeah, never before has a building done that. But actually, if you read the 9/11 commission, it doesn't even say it really fell because of fire. They say it fell because of the events on 9/11, which is the only truthful statement in the entire thing. That yes, there were events on 9/11 that caused it to collapse. Nobody's arguing that, but what were those events?
I think that is so ludicrous that they are obviously saying to the American people, you're so damn stupid, we can say anything. We can say it any way we want, and you won't know anything about how it happened. And we do, but we're covering it up to cover up the powers that move this nation. The people who run this planet, they don't want it known by the people what's going on. And since we are nothing more than a bunch of mangy dogs that are crawling up to our masters, and we will say whatever they want us to say, and we will tell you anything we want to tell you, and you're stupid enough to buy it, and that's good enough for you.
There's a quote actually from Dick Cheney. I believe it might have been Wolfowitz, one of those guys, one of the neocons. I forget exactly which one, but he got asked a question and he replied to the reporter, well, we decide what reality is. And he literally said that to him. We decide what reality is.
I like that. I like that. That is wonderful. That's an incredible quote.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Dick Cheney, but I might be wrong. It might have been one of the other neocons. I get them confused sometimes, being so long.
Yeah, but
in my mind, I knew that was bogus from the beginning, so I've kind of already put that behind me as another one of those things.
Yeah, no, but to have somebody say that in public, that really does tell you what the name of the tune is. They will decide what the reality is, and you keep your mouth shut and drink your beer and watch a basketball game, or we'll throw your ass in prison. And that's why they show so many prison shows on national television with Discovery Channel and all the different educational channels. They always have all these prison documentaries. Why? Because they want to show you what it's like in prison, where you're going to go if you keep shooting your mouth off.
Yeah.
Just remember, watch what's happening in prison to people who go into prison. Watch it. We're going to make sure you have it in full sight so you can watch it every night on television, the prison shows and what's happening with the gangs in prison. Because why? We want you to see it and remember it, because that's what's going to happen to you if you keep shooting your mouth off and talking about what's going on in this country. We're going to throw you into prison. So just keep in mind what it's going to be like for you when we throw you in there. So if you got any brains at all, which most likely you don't, if you have any brains at all, you keep your mouth shut in public.
Yeah, it's kind of like this thing right now. So the supposed Democrats are all worried about this whistleblower guy's identity. But at the same time, they're doing everything they can to kill Assange, who was a real whistleblower. You got Snowden, which actually I think Snowden may be a double or triple agent, because some of the stuff he's saying, and I'm not buying that they wouldn't have taken him out by now. But anyway, you could point to these people and notice what happens when you actually whistleblow something. That's exactly what happens to you. You either end up dead, or you end up in prison or running for the rest of your life. but they pretend like they protect whistleblowers, of course,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
long as they're not really saying anything. And that you made that point about the television. If anyone's ever noticed on the 4th of July, on Independence Day, or Christmas or New Year's, when you turn on the TV, all you see is a marathon of like a TV show, Cops or Highway Patrol or whatever. So they want to make sure you better not get out of bounds with your freedom, or we're gonna come get you.
That's
And
right.
it's like a
Exactly. They
24
want you
hour
to
thing.
see. They want you to see what it's going to be like if you go to prison. So that's why they have National Geographics do all their special documentaries that show you what it's like in prison with the gangs in prison. Why? Because they want you, America, to watch it. And
Yeah,
keep in mind that this is what you're going to get if we catch you shooting your mouth off in public. You're going to prison, and nobody is going to save you because there ain't no law. You don't have to worry about cops coming in or lawyers coming in to protect you. Nobody's going to protect you. Zero, nobody, no court. All the judges will tell you there is no justice. There's just us.
that's
And
right.
we work for the government. So don't expect the courts to protect you. You don't have any rights. You got no rights, period. You haven't had any rights since 1870s, since the United States became the United States Corporation.
Yeah, and
We no longer we used to be United States of America, a republic. We're no longer a republic because after the Civil War, we were here in this country after the Civil War. We were a lot of things, but united wasn't one of them.
no,
We were not united. We just got to having a bloody civil war within our own country where Americans were killing Americans. And it was said to be so ugly and so bloody. And so that's why after the Civil War was over, it was decided by the politicians, the Rockefellers, and the big money people running the country. It was decided we don't need to have the United States any longer. The states are not united. So
no,
we're not the United States. So what they decided to do in 1870 was to create a federal corporation called the United States Incorporated, and they incorporated the United States company in the Delaware. It was a Delaware corporation. And so today are not Americans. That's why we don't have any freedoms. We're
yeah,
not Americans because used to they would say America was the land of the free and the home of the brave. Well, we're not free or brave. We're just what we have always been, a bunch of slaves.
yeah,
But the whole idea is that today we're no longer the United States of America. We are a United States corporation, and that's why we as individuals are employees of a foreign corporation because the corporation is in Washington, D.C. It's not in California, it's not in the other 50 states. It's in Washington, D.C., a place called the District of Columbia. And so the District of Columbia is where Washington, D.C. and the United States Corporation operates from. So whatever is happening in Washington, D.C., it has nothing to do with the rest of the country at all. The United States Corporation is a company of 50 states.
yeah.
And that 50 states has nothing to do with the federal government called Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is only empowered to operate in that city called Washington, D.C.
And you know that I'm surprised I haven't thought about this before because I've thought about it so much. I just realized when you said that you brought it up in that way that when 9/11 happened, there was two places that it happened. One was in the District of Columbia, but the other one was in front of the Statue of Liberty, which we know is Columbia. She's
That's
Columbia,
right.
right? So
That's
she
right.
watched it, right? So she watched it right there. And then the whole symbolism of 9/11 is not just an emergency, but it's also the ninth month that a female gives birth, right? And it's the whole thing is so creepily esoteric, um, that I don't know how people can't put it in their head that that's what's happening. Like they'll still deny it. I talk to people today; they still deny it up and down. They tell you you're crazy, and they refuse to think about it beyond like a goldfish, probably 60 seconds, and then they move on to something else.
Yeah.
They can't handle the idea of that.
Well, Wikipedia has an article on 9/11. Wikipedia had an article, and it was very important. I pulled it off and saved it. It said that Jesus, when he was born, was probably born, according to the Vatican, according to religious sources, Jesus would have been born on September 11th,
Wow.
9/11, and that was the actual birthday of the Messiah. And according to the scriptures, that the Messiah would come back into a new world order, bringing a whole new world with him when he came back. And it says, and therefore it would be appropriate, the religious authority said, it would be appropriate for God to bring about a new world order, the kingdom of God on the earth in 9/11, in September of 11. And so it said that he, and then it went on to say that September 11th was the Feast of Tabernacles. And so in the Jewish religion, it's the time when the Jewish world financial interest of the world comes together to finally take over the world. That's what the article said, that it's a banking holiday in world Judaism that commemorates the coming of the new Jewish Messiah, and the new world order is on 9/11.
That makes a lot of sense, because that's a theory that I've been telling people, from my opinion, that the numbers are the third millennium, and on the 9th month.
I'm going to send you the article. I cut it out and saved it and cropped it and saved it. I'm going to send it to you.
If you want, you can actually share screen there and show everyone.
Yeah, that's true. I could do that too. Yeah.
Just make sure you don't share your desktop and only share that window.
Yeah. Can you see a picture here?
Not yet.
Okay.
So if you hit the share button down there at the bottom, you should be able to pick from a list of windows.
Okay, here we go. It says share.
And then you just got to pick the window, and all of us should be able to see it there. There you go. We're looking at the Pope kneeling.
And this is the French Grand Orient Temple Masons in Paris. The article says in Paris, France, the Pope had to go on his knees before the Grand Master of the so-called French Grand Orient Free Masonic Organization in Paris.
Wow.
They are the people behind the World Communist Movement. The World Communist Party is the orchestrated at the very top. Soviet Union, Communist China, all the communist countries of the world come under this
would include the Fabian socialists and all of the stuff that came out of
that's
them.
right.
Well,
that's
right?
all the same group. But how come the Pope is on his knees before them? And they are placing the square martyr board on his head. The French Grand Orient Temple Masons in Paris you have to go on your knees before your masters. The Masonic Order of Paris, France. This is why Paris is called the City of Lights.
That's right.
Illumination. Each person is an Illuminati. He is an enlightened one. So it's the City of Lights.
Do you think that's why today that they're flooding it with Islam on purpose?
Oh, I'm sure. There's a reason for everything. It's all being organized, orchestrated. It's all there.
Yeah, that was trippy there. I don't think I've ever seen that. The Pope kneeling to anyone.
Yep. And I'm trying to find, where did I put that article about 9/11? Hold on. I have a 4 terabyte that I have saved everything on.
Here, let let you look for it, and I will share your webpage with everybody.
Yeah, okay, do that. Yeah, show my webpage.
And if you guys want to check out jordanmaxwellshow.com right here, I'm pretty sure you guys can see that.
Yep.
And he's got tons of podcasts, and you can donate to him because, you know, he doesn't get paid to go around and share his knowledge. You can donate here, and you can get DVDs. You can help support him with Bitcoin, all kinds of stuff on here. But the amazing part is all of these podcasts and radio shows that you got from over the years. If you guys would like to check that out, remember that's jordanmaxwellshow.com. And don't go to the other jokester guy.
And you will see also on the home page, you'll see the word join research website. Did you see it? Go back to the top. Go back to the top. There it is.
Right
see,
here.
It says join research website. Now you can join that, but you have to join it to be able to see what I put on that website. I'm putting all of my research material on that website. All the videos and audio lectures that you need to know about that have happened years ago. I recorded them and now I'm putting them out for free that you can sit and watch them on my website. Wow. And you can sit and watch all these lectures and research stuff that I've done, all the pictures and documents and research papers, all the stuff I have on my research website. So you can just click on it and join it. And then you will be able to see all of the materials and see, there it is there. You go back to the top in that blue strip. It says log in. See it?
Yeah.
Right. When you log in, you have to make a donation, and it's a one-time donation for a lifetime subscription. Only one time, and you will have access to all of my research over the years I've been doing for many, many years. And you will have all of it, for a lifetime subscription for one-time donation to the website. So I've got stuff on there nobody has. I've got material on that website, on that research website. There's a section on that research website called important documents or interesting documents or interesting articles. I think it's called interesting articles. So if you join my research, you go and log in, join my research website, and then you'll see one of the openings on that research website is important articles or interesting articles. I have things on that interesting articles that nobody has, nobody, and extraordinary stuff that nobody has, period. I'm the only one. And nobody has some of the stuff that's on that Jordan Maxwell Research Society research website. So you have to go there and join it and then go to interesting articles and you will see stuff there and read it and just know that what you're reading nobody else has and nobody else has even heard of. Some interesting and important arguments about who we are as Americans, where we come from, where our government is going, who's running it. Is an extraordinary story, and it's all right there in the audios and video lectures. It's some of the most powerful stuff on the earth today, and I'm one of the very few people that has it. I'm the only one that has it out there. So just go on my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, which you have, and then join my research website.
That is awesome. And while you're looking for this 9/11 thing, I was gonna say you have an event coming up in Laughlin, correct?
That's right, I do. In February, I'm going to be speaking in Laughlin, Nevada, which is about 50 miles south of Las Vegas. Go on the map and you'll see a little town on the Colorado River about 50 miles south of Las Vegas. And it's called Laughlin, Nevada.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's just like Las Vegas. It's just small and very cozy. But it's a very big gambling town. got big and beautiful hotels, and it's right on the Colorado River, and I'm going to be speaking at one of the big hotels there. And it's going to be a big conference. It's going to be a major mega conference, and it's called the 2020 UFO Mega Conference
And
in
if I can,
Laughlin.
I'm going to be there as well.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a mega conference.
Mega.
Yep, a mega conference, and I'm going to be speaking there. And it's going to be a week long, not just a couple of days. It's going to be like 7 days long. It's going to be
Wow, that's
very,
awesome.
very big. Yeah. So if you're there, I'll see you there. Come see me if you're there.
I definitely will try to get up there to do that. That's like my favorite stuff is traveling and filming along the way.
Yep.
So I have quite a few people in the chat. If you would like to answer some questions, if not, that's fine.
No, that's fine.
So you guys have any questions for Mr. Maxwell? You can put it in the chat there, and I will ask them. It's a little delayed, but they'll get it in a second. It's like usually whenever if I don't say to ask the guest questions, there'll be a bunch of questions. And then when I put them on the spot, nobody has a question.
Yeah, right. That's about par for the course. It's okay.
Somebody asked, what's your thoughts on black goo? I'm not really sure what that's. I think they mean like ectoplasm or something like that.
I don't have any thoughts on that.
The only time I've ever heard of that is like with the Vril Society, allegedly.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that too. But the man I listened to, the guy I think is pretty incredible on that kind of information is Joseph Farrell. Have you ever heard of Joseph Farrell?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, what a mind he has. Joseph Farrell, Farrell, Farrell. He is extraordinary, brilliant man, talking about all the dark occult sciences of the world, and he knows what he's talking about. Boy, he is really interesting. So you need to listen to Joseph Farrell. You need to get him on your show if you can.
I will definitely try, yeah.
He will blow you and your audience away. Believe me, he does with me, because I've talked to all the best of the best. And as far as I'm concerned, Joseph Farrell is the best so far. I don't know anybody that comes better than him. This guy is forget more than what most people will ever learn is going on in the world. He forgot more about it than most people will ever learn. And he's very, very good at the science, the occult sciences of the world we live in. What's going on and how they're doing it, what the implications in science are of where we're going, where we come from, and who we are, and what's happening to us as in the human world that we live in, where we're going and where we're heading. And he really is quite a brilliant man. His name is Joseph Farrell, Farrell. Anyway, I've given Joseph enough time. But he is extraordinary man.
I'll try to do that. Actually, that's a good idea. I see a lot of questions in the audience, but I tell you a little secret. We've covered all of those questions that I've seen so far on the last couple times Jordan was on. So if you guys want to know about the Saturn worship and the black caps for graduation, all that stuff, we kind of covered that pretty well on the last couple times we talked. So if you guys want to go back and watch that, all of those questions I've seen so far will be answered.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, in closing, is there anything else you'd like to say besides the event you're going to have in Laughlin there?
Yeah, the event in Laughlin is important because I've been planning for it for a long time, and I'm working on the presentation I'm going to do there. But I guess the only thing I would say that's important is to keep in mind that when you're looking for me on the web, my website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. You have to add the word show. because it's the only website I have is jordanmaxwellshow.com. So that is me. So don't email me at Jordan Maxwell Show and say, Jordan, is this really your website? Yes, it really is my website, because you're seeing my face and you're hearing my voice, and I'm pointing to it and saying Jordan Maxwell Show is my website. Yes. So I don't know how much more I could do. I could come over to your house and shake your hand, and so you'll see me, and I can tell you it's my website, or you can just look and see. It says jordanmaxwellshow.com. But when you go on jordanmaxwellshow.com, you will see a research website that says to join. Click on that and join my research website, because that's where all the documents, papers, research papers, pictures, documents, everything is going to be, including lectures and videos about stuff that is absolutely astounding that you're going to hear. You probably have never heard before. Stuff I've got on my website, on my research website.
Well, I can tell you, for one, I'll be digging through it.
Good. Okay, then you'll see what I mean.
All right. So I'd like to thank you for coming on again and sharing your time and your experience and your knowledge with us.